While we are busy talking about how great Ecuador is for expats, Ecuadorians are leaving, or they've already left.
Yeah, it's estimated that there are around 1.5 to 2 million Ecuadorians living in other countries like Spain, the United States, Italy, and Canada, and of course other countries. But those are the main countries.
Yeah, so in this video, we're going to answer the question that we often get, which is, if Ecuador is so great, why are Ecuadorians leaving?
This is our October 2022 Members' Choice video. If you would like to vote for the next hot topic, then join us on Patreon at the Members' Choice tier or higher. Plus, you'll get to watch the video a month before everybody else.
Yeah, check below for a link to watch a short video about all the benefits of joining us on Patreon.
Now let's dive into the top 10 reasons why Ecuadorians are leaving home and moving abroad.
And the first one is they want a better education for their children.
Yes, we've heard from a lot of people that the public education system is lacking in parts of Ecuador. And of course, everybody wants to provide the absolute best they can for their children.
There are a lot of private schools for lower education in Ecuador, but they can be quite expensive. They teach foreign languages. They're usually like international schools, and they'll teach English, German, French, or other languages. Those schools are kind of expensive, and so pretty much limited to more of the wealthier Ecuadorian families.
And number 9 is also education related, and that is to study abroad at university.
Yeah, a lot of Ecuadorians go abroad to study at a university for specialized degree programs in medicine, engineering, architecture, even music. There are a lot of fantastic musicians in Ecuador, but there aren't as many great musical schools. So we've heard that people go abroad to study music and other fine arts and complex degrees that maybe they don't have the same opportunities or the same level of quality here in Ecuador that they might in, say, like Switzerland, Germany, the United States. A lot of our doctors trained in either in Europe or the United States.
Some of our doctors have trained in Brazil and Argentina as well. So they also are going to other South American countries to get those medical degrees.
Number 8 is to go see family members who live in other countries.
Yeah, we've met a lot of Ecuadorians that have family in the United States, and they go back and visit regularly. Some of them have gone back and lived with their family members to go to school, as we mentioned earlier, whether it's in high school or for college, or some of them just go back just for work opportunities.
During the 70s and 80s and early 2000s, the United States and Spain both had immigration programs that made it pretty easy for Ecuadorians to get legal residency in those countries. So there are a lot of Ecuadorians that live in those countries for a long time, 30, 40 years. And they often bring their families.
Number 7 is for healthcare.
This is kind of a false perception that Ecuador's healthcare isn't great. The public system does struggle here, and they're struggling with funding and availability of medication and doctors. But the private healthcare system in Ecuador is fantastic. We are huge fans of it. It's easy to navigate, it's affordable, the doctors are really well educated, so we're extremely happy with it. But a lot of Ecuadorians kind of believe the negative propaganda about healthcare here and the positive propaganda about healthcare in the United States. Even our president here recently went to Houston for a cancer treatment for, I think he had a melanoma, and we're like, why would you do that? They have great treatment here for that kind of stuff. If you need experimental treatment, like some sort of experimental drug or procedure, the United States is great for that because that's where the corporations go, because they can charge whatever they want for those medications and procedures. They can't do that in other countries, so that's why they kind of do all of that in the US. But for regular daily standard care and regular stuff that you need doctors' help with, Ecuador is actually better than the United States, and we have firsthand experience with that.
There are also medications available here in Ecuador that we did not have access to in the United States, such as Nucleo, which JP used for his neuropathy, which really worked for him. He's still not taking it. He used it for a time and then stopped when his neuropathy improved. You should probably be talking about this, but I'm very happy about it. And that's a medication that's available in many other countries in the world, but not the United States.
Yeah, we've heard that about a lot of medications. The other thing we really like about healthcare in Ecuador is that the doctors will actually prescribe holistic treatments before they go straight to surgery or medication. So they'll tell you to make lifestyle changes and give you help on that. We've had doctors prescribe fruits and vegetables or specific fruits and vegetables to help with specific conditions like constipation. They'll prescribe eating a pitahaya, which is a dragon fruit, because it helps with that. In the United States, they go right for the drugs. So that's the other thing we really like about healthcare here. But unfortunately, there's this perception that that is like not good. It's not the best form of healthcare. When we, coming from the system that we came from, we really appreciate it.
Number 6 is concerns about corruption. And this is something that we don't know too much about since we've only lived in Ecuador for 5 years. But Ecuadorians are really concerned about the corruption, especially over the past few years. We've heard a lot more about this and the political instability in general. However, there's corruption all over the world, so I don't know if going to another country is really going to help you escape that.
I think it protects you from it because you don't have the history, the historical baggage that comes with being born and raised in a country, and you know everything about it all. You see all the flaws because you were raised with them. You know, Ecuadorians are, all of our friends talk about corruption, and I tell them that in the United States we call that lobbying, and it's completely legal. It's just they're not used to it on like the corporate scale here as much. So when anything happens that would be considered kind of unethical to us, it's like, well, that's just the way it's done. So it's not a big shock for us, but for them, they're like, well, we want to go somewhere else where it's not so corrupt. And unfortunately, I think it's kind of corrupt everywhere.
Yeah, I don't think there's, like you said, JP, I don't think you could escape that. And it is a perception. And we've talked about this before, that we have been able to leave the political stuff behind from the U.S. We just don't really tune into that, and we aren't as emotionally involved here in Ecuador, and it's definitely the reverse for Ecuadorians going to another country such as the United States or Spain.
Number 5 is a serious one, and that is an increase in crime that has happened since the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, unfortunately, crime has definitely increased throughout the country, and, you know, some people are afraid and they think that they're going to be a lot safer if they take themselves and their other family members or send their kids off to another country so that they are not potentially victimized by crime or by any of the other activities like the gang activity. They don't want their families to be involved in that.
Yeah, and Spain has a really favorable immigration program with Ecuador, and Spain is one of the safest countries on the planet. So, you know, if I was a wealthy Ecuadorian and I had kids, I might consider sending them off to school in Spain just to have them away from the risk of the crime. There has been a lot more robberies and theft going on in the country, but also a lot more murders. It's really, it's concerning because it's just not common in Ecuador, and they're struggling to deal with the increase in the violent crime especially.
Number 4 is that they want to experience different cultures.
People move abroad from all over the world for this one reason, to see how other people live. We had a comment on one of our recent videos from an Ecuadorian who went to Switzerland to study abroad, and she lived with a host family, and she said that they live in a really nice 3-bedroom apartment, but she had to adjust to the small size of it because she lived in a big house here in Ecuador. So she said that was an adjustment, but she did enjoy learning, spending time in Switzerland and studying there.
There is a whole world out there to explore, and Ecuadorians are just like everybody else. They want to go and explore the uniqueness of other countries. Number 3 is to have a new adventure, and this is kind of similar to the cultural thing, but some people truly have the adventure bug, and they just want to go out there and take a month off or a couple months and go crazy enjoying nature or enjoying the city life. Yeah,
they don't necessarily move abroad, but they spend a lot of time abroad. We have some friends that spend a month biking the Colorado Trail in Colorado. They're Ecuadorian on a cycling vacation, although I wouldn't call that a vacation. That's not my idea of a vacation. They also spent a month in Bolivia cycling across the salt flats. It's an incredible adventure that they went on, but they came back home to Ecuador when they were done.
We were just speaking to another friend of ours who spent a month in Spain. So this is not an uncommon activity for people. They may go for short term, a month to 3 months of travel, and then they come back home and go back to work, and just like the Europeans do.
Yeah, man, wouldn't that be great? Americans, it's such a foreign concept for us from the United States to take a month off from work and go to another country. But in other parts of the world, including Ecuador, that's common. That's like normal for them.
Number 2 is to learn a new language. Often this is English, and we have met so many Ecuadorians that went to the United States on a foreign exchange program when they were kids to learn English, and now they're fluent and we're jealous.
Yeah, some of them, their English is so spot on. They don't even have an accent because they went and learned it when they were kids. I wish we would have learned Spanish. I wish my parents would have sent me to Mexico when I was a kid. That would have been awesome. So, and also knowing English especially English is la lingua franca. It's a bridge language. So if they know that, it really gives them a lot of additional economic opportunities. It opens up all kinds of doors for them, not only in Ecuador to provide additional services or qualify for jobs, higher paying jobs, but then also to qualify for visas in other countries and be able to go work in other countries. And that brings us to our number one reason why Ecuadorians leave Ecuador, and that is for economic or job opportunities.
Living in Ecuador is great because it's a lower cost of living. However, that means a lot lower wages. So a lot of Ecuadorians choose to go to other countries to get better paying and high paying jobs.
Yeah, and there are a lot of countries, especially Spain, that welcome Ecuadorians, especially the educated Ecuadorians that come there. They can earn a lot higher salary in euros or in dollars in the US or Canada. And they make all kinds of money compared to Ecuador, and then they send that money home to their families here in Ecuador to help them out. And if you drive through the countryside, a lot of times you'll see us big houses, and we've asked our drivers, like, what are they doing to be able to afford such big houses? And they said, well, their families probably live overseas somewhere, and they send that money home to them.
Other Ecuadorians go abroad to make money and learning skills so that they can come back and start their own business here.
The Ecuadorian culture is very entrepreneurial. We're constantly impressed with the types of businesses Ecuadorians start. A lot of them have multiple streams of income, which is kind of foreign in the U.S. In the U.S., we're taught to go get a job, and that's our income stream. And then if we get fired or laid off or the job goes away, we don't know what we're going to do. Well, in Ecuador, most people we know have multiple streams, and they know how to deal with downturns in the economy and job insecurity much better than we do.
We talked about poverty in one of our live streams, and there is this perception that everybody in Ecuador is poor, and that is just not the case. However, there are people, and I'm sure you guys have heard about this on the news, that are going to other countries without the proper documentation and trying to enter these countries for the same reasons that we just listed above. And it's a really sad situation, but that is not everyone.
Yeah, they want a better life for themselves and their family, especially their children, and they think that they're going to be able to achieve that by paying somebody to get them across a border somewhere. And really, it's unfortunate because they're kind of misled and lied to, and they save up money that they could use here to help themselves to get a better education or put food on the table, and they use that money to try to enter a country without having a tourist visa or any kind of a visa. It's really a sad situation. However, there are millions of Ecuadorians who can immigrate legally to other countries because they have the financial means to do so. The poverty rate here is about 27%. That's about 6 million people. It's a lot, but in a country of 18 million people, there's like 12 or 13 million who are not in poverty, and about half of the population, around 9 million or so, would be considered comfortably middle class or upper class, smaller percentages in the upper class, but there are a lot of wealthy Ecuadorians.
And a lot of those Ecuadorians are moving back home. We spoke recently with Paul Wilches, and he said a lot of Ecuadorians are now shipping their containers back here to Ecuador.
Yeah, they live in the United States or Spain or other countries, and they're moving back home for the same reason the expats are moving to Ecuador. Although most expats don't have family here, a lot of Ecuadorians want to be close to their families, but they also like the lower cost of living here in Ecuador. They've saved up and they have a nice retirement fund, and that will go a long way here in Ecuador, where it might not in Europe or in the United States or Canada. So they like to move back home to take advantage of that low cost of living.
To sum it up, Ecuadorians leave for the same reasons everybody else leaves their home country.
And a lot of them move back to Ecuador for the same reasons that other expats move back to their home country. Basically, people are the same everywhere.
We hope you'll join us over on Patreon and in our private chat community so we can get to know you better.
And check below for that link to learn more and also to cast your vote for the next Members' Choice video. And we will see you all in our next video. Ciao.
Ciao.